I can't tell you how many people I meet. I tell them what I do and they say, I wish you were around 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 2 years ago, because
Yeah.
I might still be in academic medicine if I had that support. And I want to give people that support.
If you're working nonstop, publishing, teaching, serving on committees, and still feel like your career isn't moving forward, you are not alone. I have been there. Scattered CV, constant exhaustion, and the sense that all the effort wasn't translating into recognition or progress. The problem wasn't effort, it was a lack of strategy and alignment. I'm Dr. Stacy Ishman. I work with academic physicians to help them focus their work, build careers with intention, and advance without sacrificing their lives outside of medicine. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start moving forward with clarity, this is for you.
Hello, and welcome to what used to be the Medical Mentor Coaching Podcast, but is now, and I'm looking at my notes to make sure I say this correctly, the Academic Medicine Strategy Podcast. Yes. And I'm here today with Kirsten Baum-Dingerty, who is my Chief of Education, who has managed to figure out how we should shorten the Academic Medicine Strategy Group to AMedSG. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I am honored to be your second podcast guest, and I'm excited about the conversation. And I think I'm so excited that I'm going to actually steal the microphone away from you, because I think this is a wonderful opportunity to be like, yo, Stacy, what are you doing with your world and the world of Academic Medicine Strategy Group? So last week, you were a totally different name. Now we're in the process of changing. So let's start there. What made you decide that you had maybe outgrown medical mentor coaching?
First of all, nothing has really changed in our fundamental focus. We have always been about physicians in academic medicine, and so that remains, just moved to the title. The other thing is that we are doing a lot more than just coaching. And I think that we wanted a name that reflected that. And you're the perfect example of how we've integrated more than just the work that I have been doing alone, but it's now a group of us who are working together, hence the word group. This is literally very literal. I'm sorry. I don't know about if anybody out there feels like they're neurodivergent, but I went to my son's PhD interview today. And by the end, I think I am, but I never thought I was. I don't know. Maybe I'm just appropriating neurodivergence right now, but I'm so literal and my son's so literal. And I was like, oh, this might be what's happening. Anyway, we're still academic medicine. We have a group of us who are working together. We're strategic. No, I don't mean to minimize. We really realized we were working with whole departments. We were working with institutions. We were understanding far more than the impact of just one-on-one coaching. And what was the most amazing was to look at the things we had instituted at the department level and how they changed the culture, including, I think, beyond the people that we actually had one-on-one coaching with, but maybe we're in workshops or we're in other pieces, culture interviews, which you are carrying out for the group. And so I think looking at how all that played together and how we were having an impact and really changing the face of academic medicine. And I hope helping academic physicians love what they do and feel like they have a place and a path was what we wanted to reflect in the name. And so that is the reason.
Yeah, I love it. And for those who have never or new to the podcast or newer, so can you give us a quick version of who you are? What did you build? What drove you to do this work in the first place?
Sure. So I am an otolaryngologist, pediatric otolaryngologist and sleep medicine physician. I started at my residency and fellowship I did at Medical College of Wisconsin and Johns Hopkins. And I stayed at Johns Hopkins for about 8 years, where I had the opportunity to really work with medical students and junior faculty and fellows and realized that this is the area that I loved the most. I was the medical student coordinator. I went on to be recruited by Cincinnati Children's, where I went from being a 80% clinician to a 50% clinician, really focused on my academic work. And I went from having a couple publications a year to 10 to 30 publications a year. Like I really just turned on the afterburners. And I was the residency research coordinator. So I got to work with all the residents and all the faculty and help all those folks figure out how to rev up that engine and love what they do. And most importantly, I first had my recognition about that mismatch between alignment of what you want to be and who you are right now and how important that was. And I have a lot of lovely people who are academic faculty now who I knew at all kinds of different stages of their development. And when I told them I was doing this, they were like, of course you are, because this is literally who I've always been, is that I have been the person who loved helping people build their path and move their research forward and move their career in the direction they wanted to, whether that was something that looked as academic as my path did, where I had 220 publications and co-edited a book and had grants, and to somebody who was like, hey, I think I just really like billing and coding and I want to do talks on that. And then maybe not even make that my primary academic area. And so helping people figure out where all those pieces fit and where they can go to do that has been the most fun thing I've gotten to do for the last 26 years since I became a doctor.
So tell me about that gap between what is a common pain point or something where people consistently don't talk about that isn't necessarily covered in your training as a physician. And so like that you're just supposed to show up as a physician and be the knowledge master on.
Yeah, yeah. The beauty is at least we are knowledge masters. We walk in the door trained, thoughtful, we're getting ready for boards, we just took them. We're smart. The
Yeah.
problem is nobody gives us like the rest of the story. So we finished residency and fellowship. There's a lot of support and direction there. People tell us exactly what to do. We do it. We move on. You start as faculty and they say, okay, great. We're going to give you a package. Hopefully you negotiated for it. If not, here's what's available. And then maybe we give you some clinical time, maybe give some OR time, maybe give some research time, maybe give some education time, and then go. And you don't know, how do I structure that appropriately? How do I get promoted? How do I say yes to the right things and no to the right things? How do I make sure that I know what I want so I know what to say yes and no to? And that is the part that you and I have really been diving into, is how to help people translate those and build their idea career from the beginning so that they understand what the yeses and nos mean, and then
Mhm.
also what to say yes and no to. So you love what you do, because my goal in life is to make sure you don't leave academic medicine because you didn't get support. Some people it's perfect for, some people it's not, but I can't tell you how many people I meet and I tell them what I do and they say, I wish you were around 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 2 years ago, because
Yeah.
I might still be in academic medicine if I had that support. And I want to give people that support. And that's why it's so great that I have you with me to help people actually get to the bottom of the things that they looked for and maybe aren't
Mhm.
seeing they can help with that alignment.
Because when you're still in the training mode, you're not trained to say no.
No,
You are, right? And so you're like, no, see, I've learned it. No.
I'm learning, but if you out there were like, no, I could never have responded with no, this is
Right.
part of what you
But
need to go.
then all of a sudden you're supposed to figure out like what your boundaries are and enforce them, and without burning bridges and while building relationships and creating a niche. And there are like just some certain tasks that get asked of us that are important. Somebody has to do it, right?
Yep.
And trying to decide how much of that is team player versus self sacrifice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're
Yeah.
completely right. And I'm sure in the interviews that you do, for those of you out there who don't know, we started off doing one-on-one coaching. We now work with whole departments. We're doing that with several of them and talking to some medical schools where we've done some departmental work and some further work. And Kirsten does a lot of the culture interviews, just understanding what's working and what's not working in departments so that we can give some honest feedback to division chiefs and to chairs and to the
Mhm.
broader institution. So tell me, like, how much of what you hear is about that misalignment?
I think that there are a lot of physicians who just go into medicine for one reason, and then what I'm hearing is their day-to-day life doesn't align with that. And so trying to figure out where that disconnect came in and where they got off track and how much of that ownership is just normal versus growing and being in the story versus dreaming about it. But for a lot of people, it is figuring out what is it that I'm just accepting as true? What is it that I'm just saying, yeah, this is just part of it, instead of it could be different. I
Mhm.
could have a different situation. Or we have people who are considering that the only way to tweak the system they're in is just by leaving, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous given the turnover cost on what it takes to get a new surgeon trained up and running. So compared to that, which we've had people estimate it for us anywhere between 500,000 and $1 million, a little bit of money thrown in for some culture surveys and some coaching, it's a no-brainer. But it is nice that I get to come in because my background, I'm not a physician. My background is teaching, my background is education, my background is listening. I have a whole coaching business on the side where I'm like telling people about how to hack our brains so that we have evidence and can step into favorite versions of ourselves through dopamine and play and curiosity. And it's a ridiculous world, which my last name is a perfect example of that. I had it changed after my divorce. But when I come into this space and I'm doing this culture work, because I had worked with another physician education company for a number of years as their chief experience officer. And so what I learned was traditionally, I would say that physicians trust physicians. And that is
Yeah.
very important when you're thinking about navigating the physician space. But when someone like me can come in, know that environment, know the pain points, know the shame and the shouldas and the wouldas and the couldas, when I can come in and ask questions and just be curious, there's almost an extra level of vulnerability that I'm seeing in physicians that they're really trying to maybe talk about, make space for things that wouldn't necessarily feel safe in a colleague to colleague situation. And so the culture surveys that we're doing are huge because I'm just like the wide-eyed doe in the room, and I honor and respect all that physicians have sacrificed and the performance expectations that are placed on them as a culture that you're supposed to be grateful, that you're not supposed to want more time, more money, more anything like that. Like all of that is bad. Aren't you? You're just greedy. And so just trying to realize that you're allowed to have those stories that benefit you. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to want and should want a life that feels fabulous on all levels, on all cylinders, and in every regard. And so sometimes being able to be the quiet one in the room, I know me quiet, but sometimes being able to be the quiet one in the room that is like the physician whisperer, if I can write up a report that connects these dots, that points out these are the pain points that your people are feeling, that maybe the department chairs or the deans, they just have no idea. And it's not that they don't want to support their people, but they're in the middle of like they're in the wheel too. They're in the hamster wheel as well, and they're running, and they're just everybody I think is truly doing the best they can. And I see that as a way where often physicians are forgiving of their leadership because there is grace, because they're assuming everybody is just doing what they can. But at the same time, we aren't looking at the system and how can we improve the system. And I love that you're coming in from this person who has done a little bit of everything, like from top to bottom in a department, and know the importance of publication. I know that isn't necessarily financially rewarding. If it is emotionally rewarding, there's just so many different puzzle pieces in play that it's like Jenga. And I love that when you get into coaching with a client, and I will talk to them afterwards, they're like, I really thought that it was this big, overwhelming monster. And Stacy was like, what about this? And then all of a sudden my life was better. And then there were fairies and violins and everybody was dancing and doing kumbaya. And
Okay. I'm not sure about the fairies and the dancing, just for
oh,
full
okay.
disclosure here.
Okay. All right. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
And
but
also, I'm not the only
it's not
coach,
about
right? So,
individual weakness, right? Like
yeah.
it is about design. And I don't know, like when you're working with, and I know that this is supposed to all be about like the name change, so I need to get back to that. But I love that you help people figure out how to create a completely different reality without like changing positions, moving across the country, leaving academic medicine. Like sometimes it's just a matter of being somebody just validating that what you feel is real and appropriate and makes perfect sense. And what if, and then going from there.
So I think the point you're making there is about intentionality. And I think
Mm,
that's what really is a key for our program. And so one of the beautiful things is that I did start off being the only coach, and now we have other people working with us who we have trained in the same way to understand this whole point about intentionality. And you made the point about the cost of retention and productivity. When you're a department chair or you're a dean or an institutional faculty development person, those are the metrics we're looking at, because
right.
whether you're a surgeon or a medicine doctor, it's 2 to 3 times your salary that typically ends up being the cost of replacing somebody. And I
Mhm.
talked to somebody the other day, I gave grand rounds at Penn, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I know, I'm in the middle of it." And it didn't matter which person in their group it was. He was just like, "Oh yeah, the cost of coaching is so minimal in comparison." And to create something that's good for the entire group, that's not just about the conversation you've had with one person. We do some workshops. We do a conversation with one of people one-on-one, so they have some individual strategy sessions. But the cool thing is when you talk to one person about one thing and another coach talks to somebody else about something else, and there's obviously different things we're all trying to focus on. And at the end, there's 15 different beautiful moments of education that 15 different people have had, and they start talking to each other. And that's what I
Mhm.
love about it. And that is really how we got from
It
it being
changes the
about
whole
coaching
synergy.
to
Yeah.
being about faculty development,
Yeah.
because some of what we're doing is faculty development workshops that only they're every resident and fellow and
Mhm.
mid-level provider and all the people in the department get to be part of. They didn't even need a one-on-one session to say, "Oh my gosh, I made this huge change in my time management," or figured out how to turn my scholarship, my clinical stuff into scholarship,
Mhm.
or I figured out how to coach myself or coach my colleague or help a resident.
Mhm.
It's the really cool thing about what we get to do now. And it's what sort of the name change was born out of, was
Yeah.
recognizing that we could be so much more and than coaching. And I love coaching. It is absolutely my happy space, but recognizing we could turn that into something bigger was the coolest change I think we've
Mhm.
had in the last couple of years, and realizing we could integrate other coaches and integrate other pieces so that we could do that on a broader level. Really cool.
And even being able to see it like across the country too, that it isn't just isolated pockets, that you're seeing the pain points. Like I loved when you went to Chicago at the end of last year and you talked with a team there and just being able to give them the same language so that they were
Yeah.
all on the same page, so that the way that improves efficiency with communication, so that people feel seen, people feel like they don't feel invisible, and all of that is so incredibly cool. And it seems like I might be delusional in my bias, but it feels like most of the people that are introducing us to their departments. Like, it isn't like the department is calling us up and being like, Dr. Ishman, I would like to talk to you. That's how they all sounded. But yet say they're coming in, okay, they're not, but they're coming in mostly through physicians who are seeing the work we're doing, or they're working with you one-on-one, and they're like, oh, this would be helpful, not just for me, but I can see this helping my whole department. It's more you create these like raving fans that come along and they're like, come here, I got to tell my friend about you. And that's how we actually got started with that transition from one-on-one coaching to the department. What do you see as your vision for the company as we continue to expand like that?
I really hope that what we get to do is continue to work at a broader and broader levels. I think the department work is really fundamental, but I also would love to be working at onboarding physicians in medical schools. We
Mm.
have an exciting opportunity that we're going to work with Marshall University this summer to actually do one of their summer workshops and help meet their chairs and help the faculty across the medical
Mm.
school really understand the ROI of well-being
Yep.
and be looking at things like time management and coaching and some other things that really just they can spread. So whether you're talking to the leadership or you're talking to the department members and faculty and staff, I think we have an opportunity to really level up the game. And again, I just think it's so important for us to help everybody feel like they have a starting place. Or, like you said, if you feel a little bit lost, to have a
Mhm.
place where it feels safe to be able to say, I need a little bit more support. And so that's why we have things like onboarding courses for new faculty. Like, I would love for every single person in this country
Mm.
to be able to say, I have the game plan to start. Like, it is
Yep.
not expensive. It's a starting point. There's group coaching that helps me ask my questions, or I can do some
Mhm.
asynchronous stuff. And we can figure out how to make it so that when you're sitting in that new job and someone said, congratulations, they put your name on the door and then they
Mhm.
walked away and you're like, now what? Like somebody, I remember when I started my first job and someone asked how I wanted to drape a patient in the operating room because I'm a surgeon. I knew how 17 other people like to drape a patient. I didn't know how I like to drape a patient. If you ask me what my clinic template should look like, I'm like, I don't know. Do I like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 10 seconds? Like, I have no idea what that template's supposed to look like. So we walk into almost always somebody else's vision of their ideal career. And then we
Right.
just take some time to figure out if it works. But if we
Mhm.
could walk in the door intentional with some of those things, and then be able to build from there. I think it really changes how you feel. And the fact that you have somebody to go to, it's scary at the beginning. Like
Yeah.
you don't trust any of your clinical opinion for the first 2 years. So if anybody's in the first 2 years of practice, it is normal. You're not supposed to even know what you're doing. So we walk in and they've let us loose on our own and not told us if we're supposed to be like confident or not confident. Or I'd be like, that's a great question. I'm going to check on something and I'll be right back. And I'd go like Google stuff in the hallway. I can't be the only one doing it, and I don't do it as much now, but even now I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, let's look it up." Like, I'm doing it in the
Yeah.
room now. I was doing it in the hallway pretending I knew stuff like 25 years ago, but I would love to be able to provide that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
that is how we ended up with this name. How do we provide support across the department? We can
Yep.
work with residents, we can work with fellows, we can work with faculty across the spectrum, and I think you actually
And
had the greatest. We talked to some faculty who aren't even at the beginning. People are
right.
across all sort of the different levels. And what's the feedback you get as we work with people who aren't walking in the door, but who are like, I've been doing this for 25 years and I know what I'm doing.
But it's also the same where we found the course incredibly useful for people who didn't really know how to be a mentor. That's another thing that's not
Yeah.
taught,
Yeah.
how to be a and so I'm glad that you addressed, like, for the early career physician, like, what your advice is if they're, like, isolated or unsure or whatever, but let me take it to the other end of the spectrum and say, okay, so if there's a department chair listening and they recognize the strain that you're describing, like what is the first step for them?
First of all, good on them for recognizing that this is the problem because
Yeah.
many of us are so busy in what we're doing. So, recognizing they need to do something different, and especially if you have retention issues, this is a huge issue, is finding somebody who can get in there and help give your people some strategies. And it's figure out what you really want in your career. Let's figure out how do we align your time with what you're doing. One of the things we do with almost everybody is come up with some time management strategy so everybody gets some time back, which is amazing. And then we look at your promotion plan. Everybody has to have one, whether they've made it
Mhm.
with you or worked through it on their own or with their mentors. And so helping everybody come up with that. And then in most of us in academic medicine are doing teaching or education and coming up with a plan that helps work through that. So I can say, this is my plan. I am intentional in my
Mhm.
publication. And you can publish anything. That's the other thing. Knowing if I like quality initiatives or education or basic science research or clinical outcomes, whatever it is, we can find a way for you to turn whatever you love in academic medicine into scholarship so you can get promoted.
I love that. Okay. Any final
Yeah,
questions that you,
yeah,
or
we're almost out of
statements or
time.
summaries? Yeah.
Yeah, tell us. I want you to give everybody the 2-minute version of why you're the chief of education. Like, what did you actually come from? What did your background look like? I know you mentioned where you worked, but
Mhm.
what's your philosophy and what do you want to do here?
I think that for me that, and I've seen this time and again with most of my clients who are not just physicians, but just high functioning in roles of leadership, that we've, and I tend to specialize more in working directly with women, but there are a lot of people who feel invisible in their own lives. And it's impossible to advocate for yourself when you don't even see yourself when you look at the picture. And so for me, part of what I love about this work is that we are validating where they're at. We're validating what they're feeling, and we're giving them an alternative that's filled with hope, that's filled with joy, that's filled with ownership, that's filled with agency. All of these things that maybe sound kind of and out there and hard to put money on, dollars on as far as ROI when it comes to looking at budgets for departments, but it drastically improves the overall culture. And that's what it's all about. People stay for the culture, and we want them to love where they're at. We want them, and so many department chairs become department chairs because they've been so good at what they do. But it doesn't mean that, again, those department chairs have been taught how to manage people, how to listen to them, how to give them ownership, give them agency. You have some that are like total micromanagers and some that are completely checked out. And so, how do you find that flexibility so that you as a leader can decide your leadership style as well? What is it that my people are looking for that will help them be happy, want to stay, and love the lives they have?
I love that. Thank you. And this is why we are colleagues and working so hard on this business because we really think that taking care of academic physicians is a mission. And I
Mhm.
love that you're in this mission with me. So, if there's anybody out there who does feel like you individually or your department could benefit from having some guidance and somebody who can listen, somebody who maybe is outside your system so you don't have to worry about whether what you're saying is sanctioned or not, but also who can help you get on the page so that you can get promoted and do all of the beautiful things in that system that made you do it. I talk all the time about the fact that most of us in academic medicine spent our entire lives dreaming about this job. So we want
Mm.
to make this job exactly what you dreamed about.
Thanks for letting me ask you some questions. It was wonderful to have the microphone and be able to pick your thoughts and hear about the passion that kind of drove all of this. And I'm very proud to work with somebody who was so passionate about it that she was able to just, in a very short time, change this into a company that could have an impact across the country, that could have an impact at different universities, that the word of mouth is spreading. And I'm really excited to see as we gain CME accreditation, which is like the next step, and as we continue to grow, and as you have a book that comes out later this year. See how I just put that on the hook for you?
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Do all of that, that we continue to help physicians love the lives they have.
Thank you so much for being here, for being my second guest on, actually, you're my first guest on the Academic Medicine Strategy podcast,
I
because this
love
is
it.
our first episode of that.
Right.
So thank you all so much. Please rate and review on whatever you're looking at us on, whether that is on YouTube or one of the podcasting apps. Please share this with a friend if there's anybody that we can help, or if you know a department chair or a dean or a head of faculty development who we can
Or the
help
person who
make it.
organizes grand rounds, since I organize
Yes.
those. Yeah.
Yes, we would love to do grand rounds, but we hope to make them get the message out there because we want to help as many academic physicians as we can and make this really an environment where everybody feels seen and heard and gets to live the life that they want to live. Kirsten, thank you for being with me today. And thank you all. We hope that you will be with us next week.